It's no secret World of Warcraft has managed to remain relevant over these last 13 years. Several different expansions, rising and falling player base, and it tends to be on the tip of everyone's tongue if you play MMOs. But why is that? Well, here are 5 reasons why. Number 5. There's usually some kind of a debate when you mention graphics in a video game. Many people will tell you graphics don't matter, and other people will tell you that it's the pinnacle of why they play a game. For me, I'm somewhere in the middle. Obviously, a game can look good and play like crap, so it's not worth playing, and vice versa. Some games can look really dated and old, but still play like gems. WoW falls kind of in the middle here. World of Warcraft uses a more cartoony art style nowadays, and they always have. But they've emphasized it with character remodels and their general design for the last few expansions. This design helps WoW's more dated look remain fresh. It also has a more artistic approach that makes some of the zones actually beautiful. So no, we're not going to call World of Warcraft the top of the top in terms of graphical fidelity, but we can appreciate it for what it is, and it's why it's the 5th reason as to why this game remains so relevant. Number 4. While there's no doubt planning in WoW's story as it goes forward, a lot of it is ham-fisted in. However, this hasn't stopped them from churning out some of the more appreciated lore and story that you could see in any video game. The long-winded approach of an MMO means that they could truly sit down and finish a lot of plots that in a movie or a normal video game you wouldn't be able to finish. One of the most notable villains, Arthas, the Lich King, is something that we really delved into and really focused on in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. That is the peak for World of Warcraft because it really highlighted the villain. Your purpose for being there was great. Each and every time after that, with new expansions and otherwise, we're always starting something new, a new story to be added to the already large list of lore. With an ever-expanding lore, you can imagine people are always going to be interested in seeing where it goes. Even if they're not mainstays throughout every expansion for every day, they don't need to be. The story will continue to grow and advance, and you can catch up whenever you feel. Number 3. Many people on the internet will tell you that the social experience of World of Warcraft has gone downhill and is virtually non-existent for most players that don't want it to be. While that is true that they have been catering to more of a solo experience, I'll admit to being a more solo player every now and then, WoW still creates numerous bits of content that can only be completed in a group. Be it dungeons, raids, group quests, PvP, raided particularly. All of this can only be completed when you're surrounded by like-minded players or friends. There are numerous guilds out there, people who, while they're not always playing together, can have like-minded chats. A lot of people tend to be sucked into cesspool guilds. For those who are not in the know, cesspool guilds are simply guilds that focus on building a large amount of players, but they don't necessarily have events planned and things like that. Despite the numerous cesspool guilds, you can still see numerous guilds that are actually trying, that have a bunch of friends or soon-to-be friends, or simply like-minded compatriots to do raiding. The social community is still at large, still valued, and will forever remain as the cornerstone of World of Warcraft in the future. Number 2. Speaking of raids and dungeons in the last point, everyone loves getting loot. Well, maybe there's a small percentage of people who don't like getting loot and you're crazy, but in the interest of talking about an MMORPG, let's just assume everyone loves loot. So how does loot function in an MMO? Well, it functions to progress your character. Progression, as it's called, pretty simple term. Progression serves as a method of acquiring more and more gear, better and better each time, fine-tuning your character to suit the next challenges or making them look cool. Each new expansion comes with more and more loot and more ways to progress your character, thus increasing the challenges as it goes along, particularly in Legion, which is the current expansion as of this video. Mythic Plus constantly increases the difficulty. so that getting newer and newer gear is appreciated, as well as lets you try the harder and harder challenges. Raiding still remains the cornerstone of getting the best loot in the game, so don't skimp out on raiding. Number 1. All of what I mentioned before comes into play, especially the last point, with number 1's point. If you've played World of Warcraft to any long degree, you will have invested a character. There are obviously people who do not want to come back to the game, but a lot of people, myself included, near the end of expansions tend to trail off, but they always manage to bring me back. Azeroth is a constantly living world of content, people, new areas, new quests, new dungeons, new raids. All of that comes into play. And every time Blizzard announces a new expansion, I'm hyped all over again. One of WoW's biggest lows was its last expansion, Warlords of Draenor. I still greatly enjoyed the expansion from what was there just wasn't a lot there. But they obviously have shown a degree of care on a corporate level, as well as in the level of creating new stuff for the player base. Legion has been one of their best in years. Graphically, it's an improvement with a higher view distance. The loot system rivals that of Diablo in numerous cases. New bits of content, small and big, have been added to the game since the expansion's launch late last year. How does WoW remain relevant for so long? Well, it cares. Behind all the corporate bullshit that we happen to see time and time again, behind all of that is a team of developers that does care how the game progresses. They do listen. WoW remains relevant because it is the MMO to play. It's the MMO that spawned the copies. It's the original. Anytime anyone starts a new MMO, myself included, you just think back. You think back on World of Warcraft, you look and you see that there's new bits of content. So you try, and you get hooked all over again. World of Warcraft is one of the best. So go out there and subscribe. Give it a shot. I've been AFK Chaotic Reunion. I'll see you next time.